Sometimes you just need to take the slips out and bowl defensively. And you need to be just as careful with your computer's defenses as well. And for that, why not use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan and 4 additional months for free. It's also completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Sounds like rhyming slang, but it's not. The link is in the show notes. So put in some dot balls and turn them into maidens via nordvpn.com/Kimber. If you make a lot of content like me, you will need help. And that is why we use Minvo.pro, a slicing and dicing tool that uses AI to conjure up great clips from your podcast chats and meetings. If you make content, go to Minvo.pro to cut it. Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Scoreboard. I am Jared Kimber, and we're going to get on with the show, which will start with talking about the fact that Faf du Plessis began this game like he was a tennis player, intent on only hitting forehand winners. But what the hell was going on with the Fizz? How many of us actually expected him to play, let alone the fact that he was going to get over 10 runs and over when he was with Bangladesh recently? And he pretty much won the game in that one spell. But Anuj Rawat played a great innings. And that is really what they need, this team, right? They need someone outside of the top order, outside of the top money earners to actually make some runs. So with Dinesh Karthik, that actually got them a score worthy of the game. But CSK were always in front of the game because RCB decided to bowl down the leg side to Rachin Ravindra early on, who smoked them everywhere. But the real issue for RCB showed up again when the spinners were just not up to it. But this was also our first game of the 2 bounces. And hell, RCB went for it. And if any of the 10 miscued pull shots from Shivam Dubey landed anywhere near a fielder, who knows what would have happened. CSK could have faltered. But instead, they won easy on a wicket that didn't spin and was quite fast. Keep that in your memory banks. Now, on with the Scoreboard part of the show. Remember, if you want to ask questions later on, the best way to do it is via the Super Chats. And a big thanks to Cricket 8. So we do watch-alongs on Cricket 8. I'm in the Cricket 8. This is not the studio. This is just a room. But I'm in a Cricket 8 room today. But big thanks to them as well for all of their support during the IPL, especially. But let's just have a look at Rachin Ravindra in the power play. Before today, he had a strike rate of 118. And then today he had a strike rate of 238. It's funny, I was on with Rob Barron today on Cricket 8, and we were talking about the fact that when it comes to Rachin Ravindra, there's almost no stats that suggest he should do any of the things that he does. So I do think you have to take some of that with a grain of salt because it is so random. But there's no doubt that he's just a fantastic player. And if he's going to get starts like that, I still think Devon Conway has no issue coming back into this side because he was so good and is just such a class player. But Rachin Ravindra, every time he gets an opportunity, he absolutely nails it, right? Worth just having a look at the win probability here. You see at the halfway point with that comeback, obviously through Rawat and Dinesh Karthik batting quite well. There's a big comeback here, but you could see how much Rachin Ravindra and that quick score really kind of ended it. And remember, Yash Dayal, who I thought bowled about as well as I've ever seen him bowl. I like him bowling early on and then not having to worry about bowling later on, which worked perfectly for them today. But yeah, I think if you look at what Rachin Ravindra managed to do, he really changed it from what was a 50-50 game. I still think CSK were in front, but certainly more of a 50-50 game to, at one stage, they were about 70 to 75% chance of winning. And if he hit one more boundary off Khan Sharma there, then that game would have been over very, very early on. So excellent work by Rachin Ravindra. And let's look at Mustafiza. So in the last 2 seasons, he's been going at 8.28 runs and over. He went at 7.25 today. One thing I would say about that is, it was probably, I reckon if we go back, there was maybe a couple of boundaries that were not completely in control. But clearly, it wasn't really about the economy for him. It was about the wickets. Bowling fast cutters, the wicket to Cameron Green. It's a mistake by Cameron Green, but it's a mistake that you make if you haven't faced a lot of Mustafiza Rahman, where it was a ball that was 2 foot outside leg stump. It was a cutter. he got himself in all sorts of problems and it hit the top of leg stump. Most bowlers in the world are never going to get that ball anywhere near leg stump. But also, if you look at some of the other wickets, he got du Plessis out with the shot to point. Again, that ball, they had a deep point out. More often than not, du Plessis is probably mishitting that over cover and is not being dismissed. And then, of course, he got the other, there was a fantastic catch by Rahane. Well, Rahane doesn't get the credit for that catch, does he? But there's a fantastic catch out on the boundary by Rahane / Ravinder as well. So fantastic effort there. But this was really the spell that changed everything here. You know, there was certainly a lot of pressure put on by Jadeja as well. So I did look at the numbers. Himenesh Ganju has this great new app that is running during the IPL. It's worth going over and taking a look. It's on his Twitter account. I think I've retweeted it as well. But we know that Jadeja, we know that Kohli doesn't particularly score quickly against the spinners in that sort of 6 to 12 over mark, 6 to 10 over mark specifically. And traditionally, he's liked the ball spinning away more than he has spinning in. But here, he did get a little bit stuck. And so he had to play the big shot to Mustafiza at the other end, and that caused the wicket. And this is the other thing I like about Mustafiza. This is probably my favorite thing. He just pitches the ball outside leg stump. Normal left-arm bowlers just cannot do that. Because generally, if you pitch the ball outside leg stump, it almost gives the batter a free hit, right? That ability to just flick away knowing they can't get LBW and they're unlikely to get bowled. But because of the amount of revolutions he got, you can see he actually got 2 wickets from that delivery today. Really interesting to see if this was just an anomaly or whether he's back or what the situation is. But he had a huge impact on the game as it was today. And the person who also threatened to. So I think obviously CSK were favourites coming into this game. And then after the first couple of overs, RCB were back in front. And that was very much because of how Faf du Plessis went about it. And this is what's quite interesting. This is his strike rate today in the power play, 152. You can see at Chepauk before today, he's usually striking around 132. And that's because you don't usually get a wicket like today. You don't usually get a wicket with that much pace and bounce. That was much more like a South African wicket than certainly like a Chepauk wicket would ever be. And you can see in other grounds, he's willing to attack a lot more early on. Whereas generally, he's a little bit more circumspect when he's playing here. But this was a really good wicket to play the way that Faf du Plessis likes to play. You know, we could see here again with the win predictor just how much he impacted this. I mean, look at this early surge that they had, and as I said, we were checking the betting odds. The exact same thing happened with the betting odds as well. So he put them in a great position. Unfortunately, though, they weren't able to keep that. And when they had the double strike there, which obviously dipped them massively. And then they had another double strike later on, and it was that great partnership at the end that really saved them a little bit. And that's obviously when Anuj Roat came in. So when he's batted in the top 3, he's made 144 runs at an average of 16 with a strike rate of 108. When he's batted numbers 5 and 8, he's made 124 runs at an average of 62 with a strike rate of 151. It's obviously not this simple. Today I thought suited him perfectly. I don't know what the message was. I think I probably would have put myself in a situation as an analyst or as a coach where I would have said, score a little bit quicker in that period after the break because we can bring in a super sub. It seems like they went the other way and they decided they didn't want to use their super sub. You can argue that probably meant that they scored a little bit slower, but it does show that they have a lot of respect for the way that Anuj Roat goes about it. Obviously, Dinesh Karthik was at the other end, so no issue there. But I thought he batted really, really well. You could see this was the game. I'm trying to remember when this was. Michael Bracewell, I forgot about him. But this was a game where he came in again later in the order, made 23 off 15. And, you know, that's probably less what we'd be looking for from him. But that ability to be able to rotate the strike, he's a really good runner between wickets. His wicket keeping, he took a couple of bad blows on the fingers, so I'm hoping his wicket keeping will be fine. But he's a really interesting middle order player. So you've got this one of 29 off 11 in another game. So the fact that he can go to this gear and be able to score at this level, but also can play that sort of rebuilding role, it's a really interesting one. I'm fascinated to see how he goes for the rest of the year because RCB need that middle order to really work for them. Shivam Dubé today, we saw them go short. He's a really interesting one. I looked up his numbers today. He's specifically bad with the ball that's more back of a length. So if you bowl him a bouncer, he can actually hook it away and he'll get a couple of top edges because he's got those long levers. If he swings the bat quick enough, he can still hit sixes. What you really want to be able to do with him is keep the ball between belly button and throat, I suppose, or nipple. And that's where he had lots of problems today. And you can see your back of a length, banged in short. You know, even when he was cutting the ball, there's a couple of risks out there. So he didn't do particularly well. Look at the amount of times he got stuck. It didn't matter in this particular game, but it wasn't the impact they wanted. They brought him in probably to try and, bring the scoring rate down. But teams really do know how to bowl against him. So you could see that first 13 balls going at a strike rate of 53. He ends up scoring at a strike rate of 180 after that. It wasn't so much. This is really interesting. I think we've seen before Shivam Dubé can do that. He can get stuck a little bit, but it was specifically the way he got stuck. This 2 bouncer rule means that you can bowl back of a length to him without worrying about you bowling accidental bounces or anything else. So I did think that there was a couple of things worth noting for him going into the future. But that's it for the scoreboard part of the show today. So we're going to take a quick break here. And then after the break, we will come back and we will answer your questions. We just got one super chat here, but we've got a bunch of other questions as well. If you're desperate to ask one, super chats are always the best way to go. But there's a bunch of others here from Nirajan and Robert and Rahul and Sriram and everyone else. So we'll get to as many as we can. So we'll have a quick break. And then after the break, we'll come back with more questions with you on the scoreboard. Sometimes you just need to remember that cricket is a funny game. 100 years before we protected our heads, players looked after their groin. So don't be as stupid as old cricketers. Protect your computer. NordVPN is the protection I use when facing cyber short balls or when the rights issue tried to dismiss me. NordVPN will help you get through the straight bat of any GEO blocks so you can watch all the cricket you want. If you need your pitch changed, well, NordVPN can doctor any surface to a new location so your IP address is set up for you to win. Want to buy an associate cricket shirt from a place that won't ship to your country? Select NordVPN. Want to watch a game on a free stream in another hemisphere? Give NordVPN the ball. Or if you just want to watch a clip on social media that the cricket board won't allow, promote NordVPN to pinch it. So if you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan plus 4 additional months for free. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Protect your computer like a cricketer protects their nether region with NordVPN today. All right, let's get to the chats. Rupesh, and thank you for the super chat, says, any memorable sledging incident that you were involved in for your time playing domestic cricket? Oh, I didn't play domestic cricket. I played club cricket. Did you ever get in a fist fight because of sledging? I played in games where I had a run out. I was fielding at first slip and I got a run out. And the square leg umpire gave it not out. And the point fielder picked the stump up and tried to stab him. So the kind of club cricket I played in had lots of events like that. I remember one stage a bowler getting a wicket with a half tracker that probably even bounced twice, maybe before the law was changed. And the batter hit it straight up air and was caught. And the bowler chased him off to sledge him, and the batter came back and attacked him. I remember many of those. I wrote about this in a piece a while back, Rupesh. But yeah, I played in 3 or 4 games that were... Well, 3 that were certainly all in brawls, and 1 that was 2 brothers who played on opposite sides and were swinging for each other, and I was in the middle of them. They were massive dudes as well. That was not fun. Did RCB mess up their batting order? I don't think so. Trying to think of... I still think Green should probably bat higher, but Patadar going out early on is not... If that's what you're talking about, I don't have a big issue with that. I would probably bat Green at 3 and Patadar at 5, but depending on when the wicket fell, I would probably send Maxwell in at 3. So I think you need a bit of versatility with that batting lineup, but I didn't look at what they did today and think that there was anything massively wrong. Thanks for your super chat, though. Remember, if you're desperate for your question to be answered, super chat's always the way to go. We'll be here. We're doing the scoreboard Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday at this stage, if I remember correctly. Although the more you support us, I suppose the more that we can do. Sriram says, is it a wise tactic to use the 2-bouncer rule inside the power play? It seems like a high-risk approach as edges can easily fly away to the boundary. Yes, that is true. I thought this ground's a little bit different because it's a bigger ground, so I can see that. But I've said this from the beginning, whether it be wickets or runs, bounces are a high-yield delivery. You're always going to get situations where they're going to go for extra runs. But the risk is that you will also... that you might also get wickets as well. But you're right. It's harder to control those boundaries early on, so it probably makes more sense in the middle. I think we'll see, as we did in this game, a lot of bounces in the middle. I actually thought we just saw too many bounces. Like Chahar was a bowler. I was just like, why are you bowling so many bounces? And Akash says, did Chennai miss a trick by not playing Shardul Thakur over Deepak Chahar tonight? Deepak looked out of sorts. Well, look, Shardul is the most expensive bowler in cricket, in IPL, sorry, I should say. Although Deshpande, I think, has gone past him. But over the last few years, certainly Shardul has been the most expensive bowler. So, no, I don't think that's a huge error going about it from that point of view. And I like Deepak Chahar, and he can, he's a better new ball bowler than Shardul Thakur. He's got batting, obviously not quite at Shardul's level, but he's got some batting as well. He just didn't bowl well. So you can't make your decision based on that, right? Because you could still make a claim that Mustafizur should not have been in the side. And so he bowled well today, he should be in the side. Well, not if it doesn't work for the team harmony for the rest of the time. So you have to look beyond that. If Deepak Chahar is not fully fit or working correctly, that's a completely different argument. But those two players are not interchangeable for me. Shardul Thakur needs to be your 5th/6th bowler. Probably your 6th bowler, if we're being honest. And Chahar is not. He's a frontline bowler. So they're not interchangeable the way I look at cricket. We'll look at these teams. Robert says, not Ravindra. It would be weird if Rachin Ravindra had messaged in, although he's more than welcome to. Robert says, what a start. Do you think we'll see him bowling much in the coming games? And how much will Chennai use the mighty Mo Ali? Well, based on this wicket today, I don't know if we'll see Moeen Ali all that much, right? They've got Rachin Ravindra's overs. The problem with that is then they've got 2 left-arm spinners delivering it in the same way. It already looks to me like it's not going to be a spin-friendly wicket. So, that will dry out, and second usage and third usage and all these sorts of things happen throughout a tournament. Things might change. But at the moment, it's interesting. Moeen Ali is obviously still a fantastic player, and he gives them such versatility, but they've got versatility through some other players as well. Shardul Thakur is another perfect example of that. But Ravindra, I thought, the interesting thing with Ravindra is that he just keeps doing this, right? He gets an opportunity and you think to yourself, well, he's stepping in for Devon Conway. How's it going to go? I actually think there might be a situation later on in this tournament where you have Devon Conway batting at, well, not later on in this tournament. I don't know if Devon Conway is going to come back. But you might have a position later on where Devon Conway could actually slide in for the Daryl Mitchell position. They're not going to use Daryl Mitchell. I think if they were ever going to use Daryl Mitchell to bowl, maybe today was the day when Deshpande was going everywhere. But yeah, so I think Rachin Ravindra opening the batting with his bowling and, allows them to use Devon Conway if they want, if he does become fit. Or they can always use Rachin Ravindra later down the order. But I like the idea of one opener going nuts and the other opener, batting more sensibly. I think that's it. I mean, I'd rather both openers going nuts, the way I look at it. But I think that's a better way of going about it. And Rachin gives them that option, whereas Devon Conway is more of a fast-scoring anchor, but an anchor, sort of David Warner-style anchor. Rahul says, today proves the reports of Virat being dropped from the T20 international team are completely false. He's guaranteed a spot and he will still play this way. Just to say that from an analyst point of view today. So forget all the nonsense about Virat and everything else, which is fine, and we all love all the nonsense, of course. But if you look at what happened today specifically, he faced 4 balls and Faf was going absolutely nuts. There's no reason for him to play any big shots at that point. And then at that stage, what happens is they lose the double strike, and he hasn't really faced all that many deliveries and he hasn't really got going. That's a perfectly acceptable way to go if your partner's going nuts at the other end. But it also meant that he wasn't really firing himself. He then looked like, I thought he had some intent. I'm trying to think if it was against Tikshana. I thought he's really showing that he wants to score here, but didn't get one away. I'm willing over the course of a season to say that this was probably one of the more odd innings that he is going to play. Sometimes that happens as an opening batter. You go out and you just don't face enough deliveries. Then there's a double strike at the other end and you've got to score. But for me, it looked like he wanted to attack. But I also see your point, right? It was a more of a at least on the score sheet, more of a standard Virat Kohli innings. And I think that's fair. Anyway, we'll take another quick break and I'll go back through the comments to see if there's anything else. I'm Jared Kimmett. This is Scoreboard. If this is your first time, you have to fight. No, that's a wrong movie. If this is your first time, please like and subscribe. We'll be here for so much content. We also have the main channel where there is a bunches of stuff as well. But we'll have a quick break here and then we'll come back with more questions from you. Ever wondered why slower deliveries work? What a zombie ball is, or how Sunil Gavaskar would have batted in T20? Well, we have the channel for you, Good Areas. Twice a week, we have a new deep dive into a great story from cricket on our main channel, Good Areas. It is the history and present of cricket as narrated by me. If you make any content, Memento is the tool for you. Take your long format pods and meetings and anything you have and let Memento cut and slice it up for social media. This AI-inspired weapon will turn your one piece of work into so many clips. Try memento.fm today. Welcome back to the Scoreboard. I've got a couple more questions, but anyone else who wants to get any of their questions in, it will have to be a super chat today. As I've closed the gates, pulled up the plank. I don't know. I haven't really thought about how we're going to look at that. Niranjan, oh, there he is. Niranjan says, is there some technical reason that has allowed Rahane to transform his T20 game other than the mental aspect of removing the anchor tag? I think he's definitely thinking about the game differently. He's playing with a sense of freedom. I would assume that he's maybe opened up a little bit more the ability to access his power, which is a technical, got rid of your question, which is a technical change. But mostly when players have a change like this, it is either developing one or two extra shots. So Jason Roy playing the reverse sweep against leg spin is a really good example of a player being more aggressive against one type of bowling because they've changed things. Whereas I think what Rahane's doing is he's playing in a way that is allowing him to score with his best shots, but maybe slightly accentuating them. So I'd have to talk to him to be absolutely sure of that. But I think there's a slight technical tweak. But really, if you're asking me, I would say this is a mentality thing. And, you know, you see this a lot with T20 where players, in late career, they stop getting picked and suddenly they start scoring really quickly. With that, Anuj says, what do you think about the impact sub and two bouncer rule in the IPL? Do you think this rule will be introduced at an international level? That's a really good one. Impact sub, I don't care that much about the impact sub. If we're going to have subs, let's have proper subs. Let's have 4 subs and you can bring them in and out at any stage in the game, but a bowler can only bowl 4 overs. I'm more than happy with that. You know, I much prefer that than what we're seeing with the impact sub. But it means more good batters against more good bowlers, then I'm all for it. 2 bouncer rule, obviously too early to tell. That wicket was not a normal checkbook wicket, right? Like it was fast. There was good carry. It helped the seamers. I want to see it more on a smaller ground that doesn't help the seamers as much. First thought was a lot more wides are going to be bowled. So that's something that we all need to get used to. Second thought was there were bowlers bowling bouncers that I didn't think needed to bowl bouncers. So I'll be interested to see going ahead how that will all go. But yeah, it was. I thought it was really. I was on Cricket 8 with Stuart Meeker today, and it was something that really fascinated him as well. So it was certainly something that we're all paying attention to. And sorry, just to go back to that, that's part of it. I know this sounds weird, but you do want that's a cool thing. I think bouncers are great. I think they're exciting and they're wonderful for cricket. From a casual point of view, casuals love fast bowling and bouncers. All those things are great. From an international point of view, we just need to see it for longer. All these things should be trialled at the domestic level. Rahul says, is Siraj on a downward trajectory? Hasn't been effective lately. Didn't he do really well in a World Cup game? Didn't he do really well in a game just before the World Cup? Look, I've said this before, he's a spree bowler. He's going to go through 6 and 7 games where he doesn't do very well, and he's going to do very well. I actually thought he was overhyped. Rob, who I do Cricket 8 with, was saying that he's too short for player of the tournament, most wickets in the tournament. He was the favourite on some bookies. He's never really been that close to taking the most wickets in a tournament. But there are going to be times when he's going to bowl really, really well and he's going to be unplayable because that's kind of what Mohammad Siraj does. I think he's a fantastic player, but you have to accept that there are going to be days when everything works, when everything doesn't. One thing I would add here is I like him when he bowls wobble ball and he's got those two different wobble ball deliveries. I think that's when he's at his best and I think he's almost unplayable. I don't think he needs to swing the ball. I don't think he's as accurate. I don't think he's as effective when he does that. That's a small quibble, but that's just the way that I look at him as a bowler. Oh my God. Cowchell Chap says, all this talk about Patter's bad form. Do you realize batter's form in the nets? I'm not sure what he means. Do I factor in batter's form in the nets? How does a string of bad scores in a test match continue to a T20? Is it about confidence, technical, about just bad luck? So I would say that the dismissal today has nothing to do with what we saw in the test match. What we saw in the test match was two of the shittest balls we have ever seen get him out, and another ball that he punched into the ground and spun back onto his stumps. Those are freak dismissals. 3 of them in a small period. Will it affect his confidence, as you mentioned? Yes. Is it just luck? Also yes. Those two things can be related. Technical, didn't have any problem today. He went in, he got a ball and went out before he was set. That is a very normal thing to happen to any batter in international cricket or T20 cricket. You almost don't... So if you're talking about form today, I would be much more worried about Shivam Dube's form than I would be Patter's. Because we saw a technique and a tactic go up against Shivam Dube that really did bother him and made a lot of mistakes. It just happened to be that none of those mistakes ended up with the ball going directly to a fielder and being caught. Pattar went in and went out. So I wouldn't be worried about this at all if I was an RCB fan. If I was Pattar, I'd be like, can I just get in? Can I just make some runs and feel like myself again? That's what he needs to feel. But yeah, I'm not too worried about that. But if he's talking about confidence, he's not going to be as confident now as he would be. But I'm not saying that that is the reason that he went out for that particular delivery. Those two things are slightly different in my mind. Muku, if you're watching, we just had a super chat come in, but I can't see the question. If you can just star it for me. AJ says, Chennai basically bats all the way down. Is that the best way to play T20? It is clearly easier to find 7 or 8 batters who can score 30 off 15 instead of finding players who can score off 100 off 50. Your thoughts? Well, it's very hard to find people who can score 30 off 15 and players who can score 100 off 50 consistently, right? Those are the two things within your point. The dream is to have a batting lineup to 9. So who was batting at 9 for them today? Chahar. Even Tikshana can bat a little bit, right? So to have a batting lineup that can go down to those sorts of positions with having multiple bowling options. The problem with those teams consistently is that those teams generally have weak batting or weak bowling. So in order to get that batting lineup all the way down to number 9, you've got a bunch of guys who aren't that good at bowling. To be able, in order to have that many different bowling options, you might not have that many guys who can actually bat all that well. So you still need solid top order, a decent middle order, and a number 6 or a number 7 who is handy. And then you have your sort of Mitchell Starc, Pat Cummins, Shardul Thakur type guys to stack the end, right? That's good. But you need those guys to be able to bowl as well. This, at the moment, if you look at what happened to them today, they kind of ended up with 5 bowling options, and you really didn't want Deshpande to bowl that last over. All right, so it's not quite perfect because if you're going to bat all that way down, you'd rather have one more bowler so that you have at least 5.5 bowling options. And they do have Mitchell and Ravindra, but those are more 7th bowling options probably at this level. So you want something slightly different there. But yes, I think. I think from that point of view, you could certainly see why this is a really good combination. But yes, the ideal situation is that England's one where it was that Liam Plunkett batted, or Adil Rashid batted at 11 and Liam Plunkett batted at number 10, and they had multiple bowling options, and they still had 4 really good bowling options. And with the fifth bowler, they could make it up with a bunch of different guys depending on the conditions and everything else. Ben Stokes, Moeen Ali, Joe Root, whoever else they had at that stage. That's kind of the ideal, right? We're seeing that with the West Indies as well. That is absolutely perfect if you can manage that kind of team. This didn't quite line up perfectly just because of that fifth bowling option. Josh Pandey is, look, he's going to go at 14, 15 runs and over some games. You'd like to have a slightly stronger sixth bowling option in order just to help him there, which means maybe you weaken your batting by one position, right? But that's when you start to get to that wishy-washy style. Path says, why am I annoyed by the criminal Pandya bouncer? Did he play today? Thank you very much for the super chat. I'm not even sure what that means. Could he even bowl a bouncer? I mean, he can as a spinner. Is that what you mean? Are we going to see more spinners bowl bouncers? Is that the question here, Path? I'm not sure. Spinners bowling bouncers is really interesting. I used to do it because Shane Warne used to do it. And so, as a kid, I was like, yeah. And I was just fast enough to get a bouncer in. I reckon I got one wicket from a bouncer and probably bowled them 30 times. And eventually coaches came to me and said, you don't, this is stupid. Stop doing this. But yeah, it has been a bit of a craze. But you might see T20 spinners doing it now that there is that option available to them. But it usually doesn't work. And it doesn't work because you don't have the field set properly for it. You don't have a fine leg or a third. And that's where a lot of bouncers go. And it also doesn't work because most spinners aren't quick enough to be able to do it. And once the ball goes in short, unless you're bowling it over 130 kilometers an hour, 135, 140, it usually just doesn't work. But there's no doubt that spinners are getting tips from quicks and quicks are getting tips from spinners as modern cricket goes. So, we're seeing spinners with the knuckleball, right? We're seeing fast bowlers studying spin deliveries to help their slower balls. There is going to be more crossover out there. I have no idea if that's what this question was, Path, but thank you very much for asking it. And thank you to everyone, Path, AJ, Anuj, Raul, Robert, Rupesh, of course, Sriram, everyone who came into the comments again today. We'll be doing the scoreboard as much as possible, but certainly Friday, Saturday, Sundays, we'll be doing it, and Wednesdays we'll be doing it. So at least 4 days a week. But there will also be videos over on the main site, and big thanks to Cricket 8 as well for supporting us. So go to cricket8.com and you can see the live watch-alongs and follow along. It'll be myself and Rob Barron. I think we've got Jack Hope in with us tomorrow. Michelle, St. Patrick Hewitt coming in the day after. So really interesting people talking about cricket, talking about betting, analysis, and just nonsense. At one stage, we were just talking about how angry Mark Ramprakash can get. That's living the dream, really. But big thanks to everyone who came in on the chat today and everyone who supports us. If you're not already subscribing, subscribe. What's wrong with you?
Support us on Patreon and help us keep making our content. Join for exclusive perks like the AMAs, the live calls, and to chat with me directly on Discord. You can also enjoy ad-free content, early podcasts, and access to my emailer. Step up your cricket style game with Bodyline t-shirts. Explore their exclusive player-themed t-shirts, including favorites like Virat Kohli, Kane Williamson, and Ben Stokes. They also have team-inspired designs and options for hardcore cricket nerds. Their collection offers something unique for every fan. NordVPN know nothing about knuckleballs, but they can help you with online safety. If you need a VPN, use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a huge discount and 4 months for free. They also have a 30-day money-back guarantee, which is risk-free. The link is in the show notes. So stop thinking about knuckleballs for 2 minutes and go to nordvpn.com/Kimber and get your deal. A few years ago, I tried to work out what my process was for actually